and welcome back to an episode of Take It Tuesday. I'm your host, Tom HD, and this week, what we found off the shelf was...
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Why do you have to be so cruel?
What?
Show some respect.
Biologists in Stockton, California have released reports focusing on the phenomenon, specifically on that trance-like state.
Are you sure we're gonna be all right?
Cooper, you gotta help me out!
Don't stop no matter what happens.
They're coming right for us!
George Romero's Night of the Living Dead.
the 1990 Tom Savini remake of the 1968 classic Night of the Living Dead. Also, screenplay done by the legendary George Romero. This film also stars the late great, guys, we lost the Candyman, Tony Todd. We are reviewing this film in honor of him. Tony Todd was a great actor. I wish I knew more films, I really do, but what I've seen him in, he's always killed it, and I gotta say, he will be missed very dearly. He was an absolute legend, a great actor, and he will be missed. But he was not the only starring lead in this. The actress who played Barbara was also Patricia Tallman, and this film, I will just jump right into it, I thought was entertaining and pretty good. I really liked it. Now, was it as good as the original Night of the Living Dead? I'm not so certain. I don't think it's as good because I feel like that's like a high bar to reach, especially since it's the film that pretty much pioneered modern zombie media. Without Night of the Living Dead, zombies might not even be the same. It's like that movie really revolutionized modern zombies. I really think, obviously, this film has a lot to live up to, and I do think that it is very similar to the original film, but I think the thing that's different about it, there are some changes, but it is still quite faithful to the first one, or the original one, I should say. While I do think there are better remakes of Romero's work, let's say Dawn of the Dead, the 2000s Dawn of the Dead. I really like that film. But I do think this film was quite faithful, and while when this came out, critics said it might have been a little too faithful, maybe it was pointless. Some said that it felt like a cash grab, which they're not wrong about, but I don't think necessarily it's a bad thing. George Romero needed money at this time. This was around the time when the Night of the Living Dead legal battle was going on. His production company was not doing great. The company, he actually won the lawsuit, but before he could get any money, that company closed down. So he was definitely struggling. So he kind of needed the money at this point. I don't really blame him for wanting to make money, because if you're low on it, you gotta make it, right? And what better way to make it than to remake probably your most beloved film? And I will say, this film has gotten more appreciation in retrospect, because back then they thought that the faithfulness to the original was a bad thing. But people nowadays thought that the faithfulness to the original was a good thing, right? Because some people say now that remakes change too much to where it doesn't even feel like the original film, right? And I will say this film felt like an Of the Dead movie. It felt like a Romero movie, and that's the important thing. Right? Maybe, I feel like the writing felt like a classic an Of the Dead movie, right? I feel like that's important in movies like this. I think faithfulness should be something in remakes, unless you make a remake that you think you can take an idea and enhance it like The Thing did, which, is, fucking astronomically better than the original Thing from Outer Space. But I think, unless you have a really good idea that you can add on to from the original concept, I think faithfulness is good because fans of the original film will appreciate it. At least now they will. And I think, I love the original Night of the Living Dead, of course. I love a lot of Romero's work that I've seen, and I always liked it. I just think that this film did a good job at replicating that. And I also liked Tony Todd's performance as Ben. I liked how Ben was pretty much just the same character from the first film, except being played by Tony Todd now. Also, there were some changes. So, actually, obviously, there was more gore. There was more gore in this. Of course, with Tom Savini directing, you'd expect that. Unfortunately, there was a lot of back and forth with Savini and the producers, who just kind of kept chopping shit up and like telling him to change shit and mingling with his work. And he said it was, I think he, sorry if I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm pretty sure he said that this was the worst experience of his life, because not only he was going through personal stuff, and they weren't even letting him make the movie he wanted to make, and he was just going through a lot at this time. And I think it does kind of suck that apparently only 40% of the stuff he wanted to make was actually in the movie, because they cut out a lot of the gore. But also, I think I remember them saying that they didn't want to make it too gory to be respectful to the original, because, it's not about the gore, it's because you don't, obviously you need a bit of gore. It's a zombie movie, right? They eat people. So obviously you're going to need a bit of gore in a zombie movie, right? But they didn't think excessive gore was necessary. So, whenever they would shoot a zombie in the head, they would have, blood splatter go out the back of their head. I remember there was a scene they cut that, where they shot a zombie in the head and his head exploded. And I'm like, they were going to give that an X rating. And I'm like, it's not that bad. That's goofy. You shoot something's head off. You shoot somebody in the head, it blows their fucking head up like it's a goddamn incendiary round. That's funny, right? I don't know. Maybe back then in 1990, they didn't think, a giant blood cloud and exploding from a tiny little bullet was funny, but I think it's funny, right? I guess zombies just have dynamite in their brains. I like that shit. I like when zombies just blow up for no reason when you shoot them. That's funny to me. So what do I think of the changes, is basically what I'm trying to say. Now, the changes, I think, were actually, I think they were pretty good, and I do think you should differentiate yourself from the original a little bit. You shouldn't just do the same movie again, but with different actors, and, it's in color this time. I think, obviously, you should do it differently, because then the critics would be right. There's no point in seeing it if it's the exact same movie, except it's different actors, and it's in color, right? And it's got a different thing. It's only, visual things that are different, right? But I do like how, in this movie, Barbara was more capable. She was, a final girl trope, which obviously, in the original, the final girl trope wasn't a thing. And Barbara was a much different character in the original film. Obviously, Barbara was played by Patricia Tallman. And I do like how this film kind of has more, I remember an excerpt from a critic saying that they compared the original's race politics with Ben, the main lead, being a black man, to this, where the last surviving member of the group was Barbara, a woman, which was gender politics. Also saying that possibly maybe it was a little unnecessary, and that it was kind of a cliche of the final girl trope, and it wasn't necessary. I don't personally have a problem with it. I think it's fine, because it's nice to see at least one of them make it out, and if it's not going to be Ben, Barbara's fine, especially since she's a much better, she's a much more likable character. She was a good character in the original, but she was kind of she was useless, she wouldn't help, and she would get them into trouble. But Barbara in this one, she was capable, she was independent, she killed zombies, she was able to, find other survivors and stuff like that. She ended up killing who I believe is the true antagonist of the film, Cooper, who, he was an asshole, right? I think he might have even been a bigger asshole than he was in the original, because he was an asshole in the original, right? But, the actor that played him, he just looked slimier, he was much more dickish, he didn't, I don't know. Maybe I need to watch the old film, but I don't remember Cooper being this much of an asshole. I remember he was an asshole in the original, but, everybody was butting heads in the original film. Everybody was butting heads. So they were all arguing. But, he just instigated all the time, and it was his fault why they weren't able to escape, because the keys to the gas pump were in the basement, right? And they were blocking people from getting into the basement. They didn't let people look around the basement. And obviously the the zombie child from the original. But also, they made a change. They didn't show her hacking the mom with this, like, with the pick or whatever it was. Why? They showed the blood on the pick, right? But she didn't use it. She just bit her, and I'm like, that's boring. I want her to go, like in the original. That's an iconic scene from the original Night of the Living Dead. Why wouldn't you do it? I thought that was probably the only change I disliked, because, like, that's one of the most well-known... Like, the little girl zombie is probably one of the most iconic zombies in the movie, if not the most iconic zombie from the movie. Maybe the first... You could make an argument for the first zombie in the graveyard. But, like, why not? Why not? I don't know. Also, I liked how in the original it was, like, actually this, like little girl, like little girl. And this one, she looked a little older. And I just think it's more fun to watch, like, a little girl zombie. Like, children zombies are always fun. Because, like, you see these children just, like, getting up like, attacking these fully grown adults and murdering them. It's fun, right? It's fun watching little kids, like, little kid monsters killing people. I think that's fun. But, like, she looked like more like a preteen, more like a teenager in this one. Which is fine. But, I don't know, I just like the visual of a little girl hacking her... I don't know, there might be something wrong with me. But, you could take that in the wrong context, I don't know. Horror movie fans, am I right? But, yeah, I like the changes for the most part, is basically what I'm trying to say, except for that part. And overall, I do think that this film did good with the changes. And I just think it's a decent film. It's a good film. It's enjoyable. It's entertaining, right? Now, as I've said, is it as good as the original? No, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. As I said in the beginning, that is a high bar to reach. You know, the original film is a very high bar, and sometimes you don't need to reach that bar to be a fun, enjoyable film, you know? And, I mean, people may say that the original film had more to say, you know, with the Vietnam War and stuff like that. And this film could have tried to do something like that, but again, does it really need to? I mean, I don't really think it needs to try to verbatim copy the message of the original or try to make something else, because then if they try to do something else, it might deviate too much. You know, it's kind of a double-edged sword. But I personally think that the film just being a dumb, fun horror movie is fine. Because, I mean, even though the original film did have a message of the Vietnam War, it was still, at heart, a popcorn movie at the time, right? It was made to entertain people, really. It did have an underlying message that was there, but in my opinion, it was overall made to entertain, and that's why this movie was made also to make money. But it was also made to entertain people, but also money. But, overall, I really enjoyed this film. Really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it. For zombie film fans, Romero fans, you know, just any kind of horror film fan, you know, Tom Savini fans, Tony Todd fans, if you want to honor the legacy of Tony Todd, you could start watching some of his films. This would be a good film to watch in that little, if you want to watch a lot of his films, this is a good one to watch as well. And overall, just would recommend this film for horror fans. And with that being said, I think I'd rate this film a 7 out of 10. Very much enjoyed it. Would recommend for any fan of horror, Tom Savini, Tony Todd, anybody in this film, Romero. But, yeah. I think I've something to say. I think I've something to peace. So guys, hope you all like this video. Share it with friends. Subscribe. Turn notifications on. Comment below how much you all liked it. And I've been MHD. Coming to get you, Barbara. I know, I'm not a good zombie, guys. I'm sorry. I disappoint everybody. Especially my zombie brethren, you know. They need the brains, and I don't got them.